The elimination method is sometimes also called the addition method because you actually add equations together in order to make one of your variables eliminate. Now, it's much easier to solve a problem by elimination if a problem is already set up in a way such that variables will eliminate immediately. So if you look at these two equations, x minus y equal 3 and x plus y equal negative 1, you'll see that I have a minus y in the first equation and a plus y in the second equation. So if I were to add these two equations together term by term, then the y values would immediately eliminate. And so that makes this problem much easier. So we get, if we add the x's together, we get 2x. If we add the y's together, we get 0, so they just eliminate. And if we add the constants together, 3 plus negative 1 is 2. So I simply get 2x equals 2, and then if you divide by 2, you get x equals 1. And then the second half of it, you probably don't need my help on. You just take the x equal 1 and plug it back into either one of these equations to solve for y. So if I plug 1 into the first equation for x, I get 1 minus y equals 3, which is equivalent to saying minus y equals positive 2, or that y equals negative 2. So my answer would be x equals 1 and y equals negative 2. Now this is a mid-level problem. In this one you can't just simply add these together to make a variable eliminate, but what you could do is, since you have 2x here, you could take the second equation and multiply each term by negative 2. So if I do that, let's see what happens here. Negative 2 times x would give me negative 2x. And see, that's what I wanted, so that when I add it to the first equation, those terms will cancel. But I also have to multiply the other terms by negative 2. So negative 2 times 3y would be negative 6y, and negative 2 times 9 would be negative 18. Now if I add these two equations together, I know that the x's would cancel, and then y plus negative 6y, that gives me negative 5y, and then 8 plus negative 18 gives me negative 10, and then if you divide both sides by negative 5, you can get the y value, which is 2. So we know y is 2, and then if you plug the 2 back into, say, this equation, we get 2x plus 2 equals 8, and then if you subtract 2 from both sides, you get 2x equals 6, and then divide both sides by 2 and you get x equals 3. So the solution would be the point 3, 2. Okay, now a more difficult problem might be in a case where you have to multiply both equations by a number so that to get a variable to eliminate. So in this example, if I look at these two, I can see that if this was 6x and this was minus 6x and I added them together, they would cancel. So to make this 6x, I'm going to multiply every term in the first equation by 2, and to make this minus 6x, I'm going to multiply every term in this equation by negative 3. So if I multiply everything in the first equation by 2, that'll give me 6x minus 4y equals 16. If I multiply everything in the second equation by negative 3, that'll give me minus 6x minus 15y equals 3. And then if I add the results together, 6x plus negative 6x cancels, and then negative 4y plus negative 15y gives me negative 19y, and then 16 plus 3 gives me 19, and then divide both sides by negative 19, and I get y equals negative 1. And then to continue this, just pick one of your equations, and I'm going to just choose the first equation. And now that I know the y value, let's plug it into this equation and solve for x. So I have 3x minus 2 times negative 1 equals 8. That's going to be 3x plus 2 equals 8. And then just subtract 2 from both sides, you get 3x equals 6. And then divide both sides by 3, and you get x equals 2. And so the solution there would be x equals 2 and y equals negative 1. Now, just like in the substitution method, if you get an identity equation where you have a statement that's always true, there are infinitely many solutions, and if you get an impossible equation, there is no solution. On the next video, I'll actually solve a couple of application problems as well as show you some other things that can happen on these types of equations.